All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm just going to do a quick intro and then I'm going to turn it over to Greg and Sammy. So today we have Sammy De La O of Compass MSP with us today, and he's going to be talking about cybersecurity. Good cybersecurity is good business. And then we also have Petra's Greg Eisen with us, and he's going to be helping facilitate. They're both going to do their own little intro here. I just wanted to let you know that at the bottom of the screen here, there's a chat and a Q&A box. We will have time for that. So as you have questions, please insert those questions, comments. And then also you all will receive a recap and a recording afterwards. It'll post on the website, and within the next 24 hours, it'll be in your inbox as well. So without further ado, I'm gonna let these guys kick it off.
Right, well, fantastic. Welcome everybody. My name is Greg Eisen, certified Petra coach, and I'm here with Sammy De La O, one of the best names I've heard in a very long time. Sammy is Director of Cybersecurity and Compliance at CompassMSP. One of my member clients and a terrific organization serving the small to mid-sized business community. Quick little overview on them. CompassMSP helps small and mid-sized businesses realize a competitive advantage by harnessing the power of technology to reach their business goals. They believe that better IT makes better lives. Helping your technology to be more stable and secure makes your business stronger and more secure, your employees more productive and happy, and your clients and customers get the best you have to offer. As Leah mentioned, we're here to talk about cybersecurity. Good cybersecurity is good business. I've been excited about this conversation. It's going to be a Q&A format, and this is a big topic. I mean, this is a giant topic. It is a concerning topic, and it is one that everybody in business needs to get their head around and get educated around, because it's just a matter of time before they're confronted with some element of a cyber-related incident. So thank you, Sammy, for being here. I'm going to let you give a little more intro on you and your firm, and then we'll jump into some questions. And I'm sure our audience will be popping questions into the chat as well, which we'll get to. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the intro, Greg. As you mentioned, my name is Sammy De La O, Director of Cybersecurity and Compliance at CompassMSP. For over 20 years, I've been working in IT, but in the last 9 to 10 years, I've been really focusing on compliance, quality, and regulatory spaces in multiple industries. So taking that IT knowledge, but helping our customer base understand the value of what these things can really and truly bring to our businesses, to our employees, and how to use technology in a safe and secure manner. So I'm very passionate about compliance, quality, and helping people understand how to leverage good cybersecurity to make their businesses great. So I'm looking forward to this discussion, this webinar this day.
Excellent, excellent. So some of the takeaways we're hoping to come out of today, I know that's a slide there, is a better understanding for our audience of what's the current state of cybersecurity. How to identify an organization's needs around cybersecurity, and how much should I invest in this problem? How do we quantify how and what to invest into cybersecurity? So with that, let me start with the first question, which is a somewhat general question, but tell us about the current state of technology and cybersecurity. Give us some information here.
Sure, definitely. So, we're in a very interesting state when it comes to technology and cybersecurity. Coming out of the pandemic in 2020, everyone had to make major changes in their businesses to adapt to the way of work, the way of living that we had coming out of 2020. So what we saw last year in 2021 was really great in terms of leveraging technology to keep our businesses going, keep our businesses growing. Simple things like our workforce becoming more mobile, working from home is becoming a bigger thing. And because we were more at home, seeing how technology was being leveraged for things as simple as being able to have more things delivered to our houses, and how we can use apps and other technologies to get that information to us in a safe and secure manner. We've seen a lot more types of technologies being implemented because our footprint in the office space is changing. A lot of businesses are moving into the cloud more, making people more accessible to their business workflows from anywhere in the world. So we've seen that shift, which also means we get to minimize our footprint and the amount of money we're investing in an office and in technology that may be sitting in a server room. So that's been very interesting, moving to Azure, moving to AWS, moving to the cloud. It's becoming more and more popular. Telehealth, online education, collaborative efforts, all happening online now more than ever. Where normally I would be having meetings in person with people most of the time, now we're having more of these engagements similar to what we're doing this morning or this afternoon. It's afternoon over here in the East Coast. So we're seeing right away how we're trying to leverage technology to make ourselves more efficient and more effective in what we're doing in our businesses and in our industries. Unfortunately, there is a dark side to all this new technology, and it's alongside great implementations of technology, we have to make sure that it's being implemented and configured in a safe way. So we've also heard a lot of the cyber threats that have been happening over the course of 2021. One of the biggest things I think that may have impacted a lot of people that we know was ransomware. The fact that one click is all it takes to take down a business for hours, days, or even weeks is become a very critical thing. And when we talk with a lot of customers about what's keeping you up at night, thinking about your business, and before it would be cash flow, employment, resourcing. Now it's, hey, am I going to get hit with a ransomware attack? So obviously we've seen that shift and that mentality in our businesses on, yes, we need to use these technologies, but we need to also make sure that it's being set up the right way, that we're prepping our teams so that they're using technology the right way. And that's why we've seen that greater need for training and creating these cybersecurity programs in our businesses to keep us safe and secure.
I saw a statistic about in a 2-year time period, roughly 25% of small businesses were targeted by cyber attacks. I mean, that sounds just astronomical.
Absolutely, and it's a lot. I think one particular report that Verizon releases every year, their data breach investigation report, out of the 80,000 incidents that they utilize across 11 industries, over 80 countries, not only were these confirmed cases of breaches, 20% of those were determined or confirmed that data was taken. So when we're thinking about the information that's out there, where it's our medical information, our credit card information, personnel information, all that stuff is the things we're trying to protect, and that's what they're targeting right now through these different cyber threats.
Yeah. I think we're going to run a quick poll here that you want to provide some commentary around. So if we can pull up that poll. There's a question in front of you on the screen there. Have you had a vendor, customer, business relation, or you yourself been hacked or had a ransomware attack? So go ahead and just complete that poll. Lee, I'll wait for you to give us the results.
All right, there's like 3 more people, 2 more people, 1 more person. And the poll here and the results.
Wow. So go ahead, Sammy. Why don't you comment on that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not surprised with the results, to be honest. One of the things we saw this year in particular was issues in the supply chain. And one of the things that was affecting that this year were people getting hit with hacks or ransomware attacks that just stops business altogether. So a lot of us have felt the pressure of having vendors that are falling behind because of these types of things. So a lot of risk factors here. We're seeing that it's not a matter of if, but when. So obviously it's becoming a very critical thing in technology and cybersecurity today. You know, when I think about my whole work experience as an adult, I remember in when I got my first IT job out of school in 2000, and it was a pretty large accounting firm in Connecticut, and not everyone had a computer. Come to today where we cannot do business without computers. So, you know, it becomes a critical thing in our business that we need. So we need, you know, the importance, the lessons learned from this year is that we need to take a step back and figure out, okay, what could we be doing to build that strong defense? Not only to be reactive, but really to think about being more proactive and preventing these threats that are out there today.
Let's talk about some of that. You know, my next question is what should leaders do to assess their organization's cybersecurity needs? And I think we have a quick question or a quick poll to ask before you provide an answer on that one. You know, have you previously had a security or risk assessment? So let's just get a poll from the audience here, and then I'd love to hear your answer to that. Have you previously had a security or risk assessment? So we got about 17 people, I think, viewing our webinar here. I'd be curious to know what percent have.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about, okay. So about 35% have, knock on wood. 65% have not. So what should leaders do to assess their organization's cybersecurity needs?
So there's a lot of value in the question we just asked of, have you ever done a risk or security assessment, especially surrounding your IT or the technology you're utilizing today? One of the first questions I always ask business leaders when we're talking about their cybersecurity posture, their risk assessments or risk management is how to use technology today. Do you have a good understanding on what technologies we have, what are we investing in, and how we're using them? And it's sometimes surprising to see the responses, because a lot of times people may make a good decision based on the use case, business analysts putting on here and determining, hey, this is our use case, this is our workflows, and this is how we use technology. Other times people may assume that because we have certain pieces of technology that just automatically means that we're safe and we're good to go. Like, hey, I just bought a firewall, but out of the box, that firewall isn't going to be any better than not having one. You know, it has to be configured properly. So not only do we have to think about how we're using technology today, how are we plan on using it in the future? Where do we really want to take our business, and how is technology going to help us to scale and grow out? And what things do we need to keep in mind when we're growing our technology alongside our business? Another good question that I like to ask is, where is your data, right? So at the end of the day, any business, we use technology, there's information. Where is that information? Is it just sitting on your server? Is it sitting on someone's desktop? Is it sitting on a USB drive that people just always tend to copy over? Are they printing it and leaving copies all over the place? We need to understand that, so that we need to know to what extent do we need to protect all this information, and do we need to make any adjustments in order to make it a more effective approach to protecting our data. And this is where this risk and security assessment process really comes into play, because by taking that snapshot of your environment, you can identify where are there gaps in your technology and where are there gaps in your workflows and how you use that technology. And when we run these risk assessments, when we've done it with other customers, a lot of times it's very clear that one of the weakest points in the process is the people factor. Like I mentioned before, you know, all it takes is one click in order to bring something that could potentially stop business operations. So, you know, we also need to take that factor into play. Are we training our staff? Obviously not making them IT experts, but are we making them understand how their role plays a part in our security posture? So there's a lot of areas that as leaders, we need to make sure that we're identifying what are our needs from a technology use perspective, and then how do we protect that?
Okay. And are there frameworks that people should follow? You know, what does a strong cybersecurity program look like, and what kind of frameworks do you utilize?
Yeah. So, a lot of times when people are thinking about cybersecurity, the first thing they think of is it's going to be a lot of money and it's going to take a lot of time and effort. When in the reality, the one good thing that we're seeing in multiple industries is they're establishing the standard through these compliance frameworks. So if you're in the healthcare industry, you have HIPAA framework that you could use to establish a good cybersecurity program. If you're in manufacturing, you can establish a NIST framework in your environment to help develop a good cybersecurity program. So compliance framework is definitely going to be the place to start to give you the guidance on what do you need in your environment. But above all of that, the model that we have over here at Compass is good cybersecurity is good business. At the end of the day, where we need to really focus is remember that our goal is to protect our clients and businesses. So having a strong program is all about having a good defense, right? The key is to be as proactive and preventative as possible, but also making us nimble enough that we can react when the time calls for it. So it's a combination of tools, solutions, and it's all fortified by policies and training. And then on top of that, you have your frameworks that kind of give you the guidance on how to implement these requirements. What it's going to lead you to is going to be a sustainable program in your business that's going to give everyone direction on how to use their technology properly.
How much should you invest in cybersecurity?
That's probably one of the biggest questions that everyone always has, and it is important, obviously. I wish I could say I have the number here in an envelope and let me give it to everyone, but the reality is every business is different, and many times what one business is doing and investing in their cybersecurity program is going to be different from their competitors, even though they're doing the exact same type of work or business. So when thinking about how to invest in cybersecurity, the key there is working with someone that's really going to help you understand your needs, tying that back to, okay, if we know our needs, what do we need to implement in order to develop this program? But also having someone that can focus on the low-hanging fruit in your environment, like what are easy things we could do right now in order to make us more safe and secure? What's going to be a long-term ongoing investment? And how do we need to invest in people in order to augment our cybersecurity program? So it's a variation of all that. There's a lot of one-off costs, reoccurring costs. So when you're thinking about your yearly budgeting for your business, there should always be a line item in there of how much you're going to invest in cybersecurity. And that's where it's important to work with that partner that understands cybersecurity best practice, understands your business, and is able to translate all that to this is what we need to do and this is how much we need to invest, how much time and effort goes into establishing and maintaining all of this.
I think we're going to pull up a poll here just to get a sense for folks' comfort level with who they're currently doing business with. On a scale from 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with the person or people or company you have assessing or managing your cybersecurity risk? So just out of curiosity, how comfortable are our attendees today? Let's go ahead and answer that if we don't mind.
And that's 10 being most comfortable, I'm assuming, right?
Okay. 10 being most comfortable, 1 being least comfortable.
All right, we got a few more folks. Okay, couldn't end it and share.
So kind of mixed bag there, Sammy. How would you advise folks to approach that?
I'm not surprised with this response because a lot of people, it is a mixed bag. Some people have a internal IT department that has been with them for years and understands their business and they have that capability. Sometimes you have IT people that have been there for a while and they haven't had the time to grow into what's new and upcoming technology and cybersecurity, or you have a third party, service provider that's doing this. And, a lot of times what we need to utilize in order to vet out if this is the right partner or not is just looking at what they're providing for you right now. So let me give you an example. Right now, what are the 5 recommendations any cybersecurity expert's going to give you that you should be doing today as a business owner? What should you have in your environment that's going to guarantee you to have a good cybersecurity practice? So the 5 things today are multi-factor authentication, first things first. That 2FA authentication, we use it in our banks apps, we use it in so many different products and services. If you have people logging in remotely to your office, if you have administrators, this should be implemented. It's a no-brainer. It helps to prevent things like account being compromised, like an email account, that sort of thing. So ask yourself, do I have MFA? And if I don't, has my IT partner been telling me to do this or not? And that's going to be a good indicator for you to know, hey, you know what? I need someone to be telling me you got to do this to make sure that we're safe and secure. Other things are like, are they staying up to date on patching on our hardware and software? And what we saw last year was a lot of big IT companies being exposed through vulnerabilities. And, the pattern that the hackers used last year was they waited for the holidays and then they would, drop a vulnerability exploit. And then everyone was scrambling. So did we see our IT partners active during those moments? Did they understand, were they current? Or was I bubbling it up to them because I saw that note on the news? So it's something to think about. Having strong password policies is also key important. Do we have strong passwords, or why am I still allowed to use password 123 as a password? If you're using that as a password, then you got to question. We don't have a strong password policy. And then policies and procedures and training. Do we get cybersecurity awareness training? Again, like I said, we're not becoming IT experts, but do we get training on how to utilize our technology? Do we have policies in our environment that we know we got to follow? If our IT partners are not helping us with these things, that's when I would say we need to find someone that's going to help me to take the lead in establishing these best practices in our environments.
Okay. You and I have spoken before, and you've used terminology like maintaining an effective cybersecurity posture. What does that mean?
So it's not, the best way I always describe it, cybersecurity is not a set it and forget it mindset. It's an ongoing process. So once, like I mentioned before, you invest in these tools and solutions. First thing, you have to have someone to actually configure it properly so it's safe and secure. Second thing is you have to be able to train people on how we're going to be using these technologies. And then the third part is that continuous improvement mentality. We have it set up for today, but in 3 months, 6 months, in the year, are we maintaining these products and solutions? Are they being kept up to date? Are they being tweaked or configured as needed? Because obviously cyber threats change all the time. And then at a yearly basis is what we recommend. You should be doing a security assessment. Go back, review everything we've done throughout the year. And then once again, are there any new risk factors that we need to mitigate? Are there any gaps that have been uncovered because of everything we've done during the year? So this is an ongoing effort. So when we're thinking about investing into cybersecurity, it's just like you're investing in your IT department, investing in anything else, that it's an ongoing cost. You need to make sure that you're sustaining this practice, this program in your environment.
Yeah. And I'm sure the answer to this question depends on the size of the firm to some extent. But is it better to hire and have an internal presence, or is it better to outsource and utilize external?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we get that a lot. Obviously, it starts with an analysis of your business. The size is definitely a factor. The way you're using technology as well has become a big factor. Just to give you a quick example, I was doing some work at the end of the year with a customer that their environment is a decent size, but their technology use, oddly enough, was very limited. And, going as in being an IT person, I'm going in, I want to just recommend everything to them. Like, oh, you need this, you need that. But once we sit down and understand their workflows, I was like, actually, you know what? You don't need to go for broke when it comes to technology. I see why you don't have that much. You don't really need it, but let's make sure what you do have is safe and secure. So right there is a great example of like every business is going to be unique and different. Now, how do we determine if we should have in-house versus having a third-party partner coming in and helping us out? So the way I always describe it is, you have IT, which is managing the IT environment, but also the cybersecurity and compliance side is also a key and important factor. And a lot of times, there are great technical resources out there that can work internally in your IT environment. They may be great application support specialists or good network engineers, but just like a network engineer may be great at that, but not at development, or a developer may not be good at network engineering. Compliance and cybersecurity experts in IT are also specialized in that. So if you have a strong need to have someone to own your cybersecurity and compliance practice, then you have to think about, I should probably be bringing someone in. And then at that point, you could say, do we need someone in-house? Do we have someone that could take on that responsibility? Or do we look for a third-party partner that can provide us that support and consulting and services for that?
What types of firms are more at risk than others? And I'm thinking about if I'm a landscape services company, right, who uses Google's suite of software and nothing more, do they need to be concerned as a SaaS platform company? What types of firms are more at risk and why?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because obviously any business that uses technology, if you have internet connection and you're using that for business, if you have a computer and you're storing information, everyone needs to do cybersecurity. And the nice thing about that is there's a couple frameworks out there for cybersecurity, like CIS 20 gives you a list of like the top 20 things anyone should be doing. I mean, I could take that list and apply to my home. I have a really great internet connection. I have 2 kids, everyone's streaming, playing on Roblox. So you know what? Anyone driving by, I want to make sure no one's hacking my, security system, my Ring doorbell, my kids' devices. So from one side, there is a list of things everyone should be looking at when it comes to technology. That being said, if we're looking at the other spectrum, the other side of the spectrum, which is like who are going to be the bigger targets, what we saw from last year, a lot of it has to do, or the businesses that have information or very critical data. So healthcare industry is definitely a big one, because they contain lots of PHI or patient health information. And normally what happens is these hackers are trying to steal this data to sell it on the dark web. Also, the defense industrial base, the supply chain that we have here in the United States is definitely a big target. And a lot of these attacks coming from other nations, like we've seen attacks from, cyber crime groups in Russia, in China. They're trying to target our supply chain that our DoD uses. So, and they don't start at the top. It's much easier for them to go down the supply chain, find a little shop, mom and pop shop that's a machine shop, get into their environments, and then from there work their way up. So we've seen that a lot in 2021. So these are some of those areas where if we have a lot of that specialized or critical information, we need to make sure that we're keeping that in mind and keeping that information safe and secure. One of the things that I jotted down in my notes as I was doing the 2021 review with my team is that one of the biggest roles in businesses that's been on the rise is the Chief Information Security Officer. So a lot of businesses have CIOs. It's been a practice for many, many years. But now what we're realizing is that the CISO is becoming a critical role, because people are realizing that we need leadership and ownership on that critical data. So we want to make sure that we're establishing, not only are we establishing a good cybersecurity practice, that we have people working with us that are helping us to keep an eye on this, implementing it, and providing us critical information in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I would think that most of the people attending our session today are sole practitioners or small to mid-sized businesses. You know, I have a chance to talk to a lot of small to mid-sized businesses regularly. And just recently, a friend of mine went through a ransomware attack, and he couldn't talk about it until the whole thing was over, and probably couldn't and shouldn't talk about it then either. But he shared a little bit about what he went through, and I was blown away. I was blown away about what the process was, how difficult it was. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks and feels like? And what would that look and feel like to folks if they got hit by a ransomware attack?
Yeah, so I can give you the rundown on how that whole process goes through. And based on what we saw last year, like I was mentioning before, most of these attacks tend to happen when you least expect it, or when you least want it to happen. So Friday afternoon before a holiday weekend, we'll get word that, hey, something's not operating correctly. Sounds like something's going on someone's computer. And once we go in as an IT service provider to go analyze it, the minute we see things are being encrypted, that's when, everyone drops everything. We all jump on a call, and it's like a red team event. We're jumping in there. We have to tell everyone we're shutting everything down. We're trying to cut off the infection as quickly as possible. And you can just expect that in that moment, we just put a pause on your business. And it's not going to reset until we can get to the end of this whole incident. And like I mentioned before, it could take hours, or it could take days. And I've also seen it take weeks. And one of the questions when we're preparing these scenarios with our customers is, what's an acceptable amount of loss from a time perspective? What does that time equal to in dollar value? And obviously, the answer is no time. Obviously, we don't want to lose any time on due to an attack. But do you understand how much it would cost if you lost a day or a week due to these types of attacks? The other thing too to keep in mind, and this is the part that really stresses me out, freaks me out, is when you have certain technologies in place like backups, and you're only finding out during a ransomware attack that your backups aren't working. That is probably the nightmare scenario right there, because at that point, you're very limited in what else you can do other than paying ransoms, which in what we've seen over the course of the year, the cost of it has gone up from hundreds of thousands, and we've seen cases of millions of dollars. So, and because of this, we've seen the cybersecurity insurance industry just taking a big rise in cost to all these businesses, because not only is the cost of ransoms going up, it's happening more frequently. So to me, it's like the last thing you would want to do is go into a ransomware incident response event and finding out like, hey, we have to rebuild your server. It's going to take us a couple days. The backup didn't work, or the backup got infected too for some unknown reason. So ideally, the best way to go into an event like this would be knowing that I've done my work with my IT partner, with my third-party consultant, establishing a good IR plan, incident response plan. We've tested it, so we know our backups work, and we've tested the SOP. So in case of fire, break glass, and everyone knows what they need to do. That is the ideal scenario where you want to go into it, and then in a few hours you back up and working. So that's the two scenarios that I've seen throughout 2021. And obviously what we want to do is take those experiences and work with our customers, give them the advice on how to develop a proper business continuity or disaster recovery plan that includes incident response to minimize that stress level, because it could literally be night and day when it comes to these types of attacks.
Yeah, these hackers are pretty smart, right? They know what they're doing. Is there any kind of formula that you can use to say, if I'm a $10 million company this is what it's going to cost me. If I'm a $50 million company, this is what it's going to cost me. I mean, is there any rough framework of, what does the impact look for me based on the size of my business or the industry that you're in?
Oh, definitely. There are some resources that you can utilize. It's interesting that, for example, in the manufacturing space, if you're doing work for the government or the DoD, they provide some high-level guidance on how much you should be investing just in cybersecurity, not in your IT and in your computers, just on your cybersecurity and compliance practice. They have this high-level calc that says, like, depending on the size of your environment, the number of sites or offices, you could at a minimum be investing at the lowest base, like $50,000 a year on your cybersecurity practice. And that number only goes up. And I'm pretty sure they're going to update those numbers after what we went through last year. So we can only imagine that, hey, this is becoming a critical part of our business. And whenever we're doing our budgeting planning for IT, when you're thinking about renewing your software, investing in your, replacing old workstations and doing all of that stuff, you definitely need to have a line item in there that says, what are our tools and solutions and partners that we're investing on for cybersecurity.
All right. I see that there's a couple questions from our attendees here. What can people who are not in IT do to help ensure strong cybersecurity in the organization?
It just cut off a little bit. Can you say that one more time?
Oh, sure. What can people who are not in IT do to help ensure strong cybersecurity in the organization?
Yeah. When we talk to our customers or when I'm helping out the sales team, the one thing I want to make clear is we're not in the business of making everyone experts. I mean, you go into a business, they're great at what they're doing right now. The last thing you want is to throw another role on top of that, especially when you're not fully versed in that. So I think the best thing to do is to reach out to a knowledgeable partner to give you that type of guidance. For example, we do a lot of that work with our customers and especially with my compliance team, we work with a lot of clients and providing guidance on how to identify roles and responsibilities and having people that are going to be our partners in making these types of decisions. So no one should really think of it as becoming a full expert in cybersecurity, but we definitely need someone that can help us translate what cybersecurity needs we have and help us to see how that translates over to our business operations and budgeting. And that's really what we want to find. We want to find that person, whether it's internally or a third-party consultant, to come in and help us with that process. And
that's a good segue into the second question. I mean, if you hire an internal person or an external person, this may answer that question. But where can I find a good resource for overall team cybersecurity training and education? So are there other resources out there? Is there the Fred Pryor of cybersecurity, for example? Where can people get educated further if they're not hiring someone specific?
Yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. From a team training perspective, one of the recommendations we always make is, there's a lot of solutions that help provide a very effective, quick curriculum for cybersecurity training. A good example of that is KnowBe4. ExoStar has their own solution. So there's various out there that you can just create a program that provides you updated content on cybersecurity. So it's a great, a great solution that you can put it all together, set up the curriculum and the information, the content you want to get. And you can also break it down by area. So you can be providing, people that only use computers for a couple things, you could set up their training. And then for people that are more on the C-suite level and they need a little bit more business-minded, business-focused cybersecurity information and training, you could gather that information as well too. So there's a lot of solutions out there that you can invest in that will help you set that up. There are a lot of groups out there that are popping up. There's a lot of great YouTube channels that are popping up that deal with cybersecurity, good resources. And one of the things that I would obviously recommend is if you do have an IT person, just ask them, hey, what do you guys do to stay up to date on cybersecurity? Because me being a nerd, an IT nerd, even on my spare time, I'm on a Discord group or I'm looking at a YouTube video and they're talking about what's the latest and greatest in hacking and cybersecurity. So those are really great resources of people that you can pull or ask, and they could provide a lot of information. If you want to look me up on LinkedIn, I'm always tagging and adding content there too when it comes to like things that I'm seeing out there. One of the things that I saw that I posted at the end of last year was an article that was a great example of why it's important that we're doing annual risk assessment, because then what are you really taking away from the previous year as you're going into the new year? And how can we be better in 2022? So I thought that was a great article. So, making these connections and networks, I think is also going to make you have the ability to pull from those areas.
I mean, hopefully people will heed your warning and secure professionals like yourself who can protect their environment and come up with that. I think you said IR, that basically emergency response plan, right?
Yeah.
But if they don't, or if God forbid it happens tomorrow and they're not there yet, what's the first thing that they should do? If they get the idea that there's a cyber attack, what do they do first?
So if they think they've had a cyber attack or it's ongoing or something like that, we definitely need to pull in the right resources there. I've seen IT personnel struggle because they don't have the emergency response plan or IR plan, incident response plan. So we need to make sure that we're able to pull in the resources. We've seen businesses that have invested in retainers with security companies. So in case of an incident, they can call these security providers, and they jump in with you to help you out on those things. And it's important because when you think about an event, you need to do forensics work. You need to do root cause analysis. Hey, how did they get in? So we could patch that hole. There's a lot of work that goes in remediating a security event. So, if we don't have that person there, hey, what options do we have to pull in someone in case of an emergency? For our company, we've seen that happen a lot in the last year and a half, where we'll get calls from businesses that we know of, even though they're not technically our clients, but they'll call us like, hey, we got a problem. Can you jump in and help us? It's becoming more and more regular. So, I would say at the minimum, let's think about, hey, who could we call out there? Who partners can we really work with that could help us out in case of an emergency? But my recommendation at the end of the day is don't wait till that happens. Let's start now, like start planning and investing in a good cybersecurity program. One of the things I always post in LinkedIn is one of the funniest memes to me is what your IT and security budget looks like before an event and after a security event, and you could throw in any picture out there, and it's kind of funny, but it's also true. So my recommendation is always, hey, if you see the need, if you see what the value that this drives, let's talk, let's do it now. Let's get a game plan going, because the worst time to do it is when you're actually going through a security event.
It occurs to me that we should treat this similarly to how we treat a babysitter when they come into our house to take care of our kids. If something goes wrong, here's who you call first. Here's who you call second. Here's who you call third, right up on the refrigerator, so we know what to do, right? So I would think at the very least that everybody would walk away with that idea. I have another question for you. I think about, when I was a kid, we used to have fire drills, right? So we'd test whether the processes and the systems in the event of a fire take place. Unfortunately, today, these kids deal with active shooter drills and things of that nature. How do you test your IR plan? How do you go about testing for that sort of thing to make sure that it's going to protect you or you're going to respond appropriately?
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned that is a requirement, like top 5 things, is having proper policies and procedures. So a lot, again, you could invest in all this technology and have it there, but if you don't have the documentation to support it, you know, when it comes to an emergency, you won't know what to do. So I'm going to throw myself under the bus and give this example. So last year I bought a generator at my house for my house, and it's still sitting in the box. At a minimum, I should have taken it out, make the determination of where I'm going to keep it, where am I going to plug it in if we lose power, and then test it so that if it does happen, I'm not trying to figure out what happens. What if we lose power during a storm or in a blizzard, and then I'm stuck out there trying to figure this out? So the smart thing to do for me, Sammy, you should do this, is go take it out of the box, make sure it works, test it, and have a good game plan. I'm going to share that with my wife so I could say, hey, look, I tested it. If this happens, I'm not here. This is what you do. So it's that basically that same mentality. We know we need, you know, antivirus, anti-malware protection, MFA. We know we need strong and resilient backups. But when it comes to the point when we need to go to those things, what do? So this is where having that policy and procedure library comes into play. Do we have our disaster recovery plan written up, or business continuity plan? Do we have our incident response plan, and have we communicated and trained our team on it? So, and then, hey guys, we're going to do a drill just to make sure everyone understands their role and responsibility in case of an incident. And that way, if you're testing it, you make sure that you're checking that things are working properly. That's how you sleep well at night.
Yeah.
But if you haven't tested it, then it's a gamble. You're taking a risk at that point.
Right. You know, COVID-19 has forced folks into a distributed workforce, a remote workforce, and in many respects, we're never going to go back. Right? Certain aspects will, certain aspects won't. How does a remote workforce affect the setup of cybersecurity protections, and how do you need to look at it differently as a result?
I mean, it's a pretty big deal because, you know, when you were just thinking about, hey, we got to keep our office, our network closet or server room safe and secure. Now you're expanding the network, you know, so now it's at, you know, John Smith's or Jane Smith's house. And do we really have full visibility on their network? Of course not. Are they using an old router with default passwords that anyone could get into? Is their Wi-Fi widely open, and that's where they're going to connect their computer to get onto the network? So obviously it's a lot to think about, and that's where that risk assessment, risk mitigation comes into play. We have to sit down and say, we need this. This is the business use case that we have now. We have a remote workforce. So what are the challenges here? You know, no control over the internet and networks at the different people's houses. Who else is going to be there? Are we handling compliance or sensitive data like PHI, CUI, expert control data, classified information? Then we need to think about, hey, what do we need to do to train our staff so that they're working in a manner that's safe and secure even in their own homes? The story I always use about this is I was doing a project down in Virginia Beach, and I was at the hotel trying to jump on a Teams meeting with my team, and I could not get the video to work. Well, it turned out that, you know, thanks to our cybersecurity team, we had implemented a solution called Cisco Umbrella, which is a great security product. And we had a policy in place that says, if you're on a public Wi-Fi, like at a hotel or a Starbucks, if you're not on the VPN, we disable your camera. Someone had to stop and say, hey, that's a potential risk factor. Let's create a policy so that we can secure ourselves that way. So these are the things that we need to think about. You're going to have to sit down, kind of go through the list, and then put a game plan together that you can easily share and train your staff on. That's going to be the best way, because at the end of the day, I love being able to work from home. I get a lot more stuff done at home. So I want to make sure that we're able to utilize this new day and age where we're all working remotely. How can we leverage that while keeping ourselves safe and secure?
So we got a few minutes left here. Can you break this down for us real simply here? You've talked about a whole bunch of things, and my head's spinning. Can you give us, we've got folks here who have some or maybe some that don't have any cyber protection. What are the things that they need to go do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are the things they need to go do coming right out of this meeting?
First things first, I would say the first thing you need to do is ask yourself the question, do I know how do we use technology today and how we plan to use it in the future? And that ties back to that question, have we had a risk or security assessment? If you haven't, that's the first thing you got to do. The most important thing to do is understand the status quo of your environment. So having that full picture is going to be key and important. And just to give you an idea how that works, when we do these assessments, it's not just an IT scan where I'm coming in, running a tool, and then I put a report based on that. No, you gotta have that business analyst mindset where you're like, I need to understand your workflows first, your business needs, and then I'm gonna assess how you're using technology and what are your gaps and risks that we need to address. Once you have that, the second step is, what's my game plan here to get me to sustaining a strong cybersecurity posture? Remember, it's not a set and forget it, it's a journey. So we're going to be constantly moving on this path of cybersecurity best practice. So do I have a roadmap? When I work with customers, we create a plan of action and milestone document, or a POAM. That's basically a list of things that have come out of the risk and security assessment, things we have to do. Some of them are easy, some of them are long-term projects. And you know what? In 2022, we're going to go back, review that list, do another assessment, any new risk factors, any new gaps, and we keep adding more and more. So we're checking off things we got done, and then we're adding new risks, new gaps as we move along in our business, during growth, doing expansion, during adding more technology. So that's the next thing. And finally, like I mentioned before, the top 5 things that everyone should be doing. Do I have MFA? Do I have strong password policy? Are we patching and maintaining our software and hardware? Do I have proper policies like disaster recovery, business continuity, or incident response? And am I training my staff to be cybersecurity aware? Those are the things that we should really be doing out of this meeting so that we're making good progress towards sustaining a strong cybersecurity posture.
Excellent, excellent. I did see one other question come in. I don't want to miss Amber's question here before we wrap up. So she asks how to handle this when you're dealing with remote contractors or freelancers, right? So you don't necessarily have control or as much control over their hardware and their services. What do you recommend in that case?
So the way that we usually handle that sort of thing, when they're not employees, they're contractors, vendors, whatever the case may be, is, again, you start with the policy, right? You have your remote work from home policy for your staff. There should be a section there that pertains to vendors, and there should be at a minimum a list of requirements that the vendor or the contractor should be meeting in order for them to have access to data, to be able to access a resource within your own network. And then we have to make sure that if they're accessing our environments, that we're implementing the same type of security that we would anywhere else, like multi-factor authentication, unique passwords for them. What I've done a lot over the 2021 year with many customers is establishing a strong vendor management policy. So we've seen more and more businesses creating like questionnaires or surveys to assess the vendors, the contractors they're utilizing before they're allowed to go in. And a good example of an industry that does that well is in the healthcare industry. If you're going to bring in a contractor, they have to sign up to a BAA, agreement in order for you to be able to work as a contractor. So I think establishing the proper policy, and again, from a risk mitigation perspective, what are the risk factors and how are we going to mitigate those risks? And adding that into that policy is going to be important.
Awesome. Well, listen, Sammy, thank you very much for being here today and educating us a bit. I could speak personally to Compass MSP. As I mentioned, I coach them. They're an impressive organization. They've got hundreds of passionate professionals that do this work throughout the country. And I would recommend highly contacting Sammy or any member of their team for help and support. So thank you. There's Sammy's information up in front of you, and I appreciate everybody's attendance. Have a great day,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank